Session today. So we would be starting now the 18th chapter, which is Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. We will cover shlokas from text 1 till 9 that you see on the screen. So let's quickly do a recap of what happened in the 17th chapter. I'll just cover a few slides because it's quite important to understand the end of the 17th chapter on what was happening. So I'll just cover a few slides and we'll jump to the 18th chapter very quick. I have a lot of slides to cover today. Okay, so just a recap, Kali resides in all the places where gambling, intoxication, meat eating, and illicit sex is present. Kali begged for a few more places to Maharaj Parikshit, and there was the last fifth one that was given was gold. And it's quite interesting that gold was given for a reason that first is in the earlier days, if you remember, it was only gold, there was no money. Now, all this is created because money and gold is not at par. And Prabhupada mentions that wherever there is gold, there is always falsity, lust, envy, and enmity. So this was the fifth place which was asked, and Parikshit Maharaj said, okay, if not these four, then you will reside wherever there is gold as well. Let's recap. There are a few things that we would cover. Two aspects. So chapter 16th talked about Varna Ashram Dharma, and the goal there was precisely mentioned in the purport was we need to come out. Let me enable my laser pointer. So the whole goal is that we need to come out from an animal consciousness and raise ourselves to a human consciousness, and from a human consciousness reach to a godly consciousness. And this is the aim of Varna Ashram Dharma. So if you remember, everything that was spoken in the chapter 16 was all about Varna Ashram Dharma, and the degradation started when people did not follow their Varna Ashram Dharma. That means Brahmanas were not doing their duties. But keep this as a goal, and we will see how this goal has an overall impact on the Dharma and the regulative principle. So the goal is coming out of from an animal consciousness to a higher level of godly consciousness. That's one goal. Let's look at the other part also. As jivas, we are entrapped into the material world, influenced by three modes of material nature. Okay. Now, jivas are searching for happiness. And what Bhagavatam recommends is that if you really want to get the happiness that you're looking for, you need to perform tapasya, austerities, and penances. And that is only possible when you achieve a divine position using bhakti. So happiness is only possible when you reach to a divine position using bhakti. But for that, Bhagavatam is recommending that you need to perform tapasya, austerities, and penances. So let's keep these two goals in mind, that we have to come out from an animal consciousness, from a human consciousness to a godly consciousness, and we want to achieve a divine position via the bhakti because we are searching for happiness. So here it is austerity and bhakti both together. Okay, keep this goal in mind and we'll see what is next. Rishabdev in his teachings in the shloka of 551 very nicely explains this. Okay, let's read this. It says, Nayam deho deha bhajanna loke Prishtan kaman arhate vibhum vidbhujamye tapo divya putrkayena sattva shuddhyet yasmat brahma saukyam tva anantam. So Rishabdev tells his sons, my dear boys, all of the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this material world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. So that's what it is said, that if you have received a human form, you don't have to work for your sense gratification. One should engage in penances and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activities, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to the material happiness and which continues forever. So the two goals that we talked about here, Lord Rishabdev is talking exactly those two things, that you don't have to work day and night for sense gratification, which is even available for hogs and dogs, but you need to get involved into austerities, you need to do penances, you need to achieve a divine position via the devotional service. Now let's see how the 17th chapter, which was all about four legs of dharma that we were talking about, helps us in achieving the end goal. So we all know there are four legs of dharma, and we will see now how this will help us in achieving our end goal. First is mercy, right? That's the first leg of dharma, which talks about mercy in our hearts. The second is all about truthfulness. That means truthfulness in our vani and in our mind. That means in our words and in our mind. The third is austerities in our life. And the fourth is cleanliness with body and mind. So the whole point is we need to follow the four legs of dharma in able to achieve our goal, because our goal is to achieve permanent happiness. We need to achieve that divine position. We need to come out from the animal consciousness, from a human consciousness, achieve a godly consciousness. The four legs of dharmas will help us in achieving that goal. So we need to be merciful, we need to do austerities, we need to be truthful, and we need to follow cleanliness with our minds and body. And for that, to follow on the path of dharma, we need to follow the four regulative principles. It's a must. So these four, to follow on the path of dharma, the four regulative principles have to be followed. So if we are following on the path, we need to avoid these four things. First, avoid meat eating. Second, there should be no gambling. Third, there should be no intoxication. And fourth, there should be no illicit sex. So these are four things that you need to avoid in all the cases if you have to follow the path of dharma and you have to achieve your ultimate goal that we are talking about. Now, let's quickly look at not following the regulative principles destroys the dharma. So if I am not following the regulative principle, it actually destroys my dharma, and we will see how this is. Let's look at the four scenarios that we have. Meat eating destroys the mercy. We will see how. When you do intoxication, that destroys the austerity. When you have illicit sex, it destroys your cleanliness. And when you do gambling, that destroys your truthfulness. Let's cover a few of the important aspects for those. First, when you start meat eating, it covers our feeling of mercy. So when you start killing animals, it really destroys mercy. You really don't see how much the animal is suffering, what pain he is going through. So when you start eating meat, it actually covers the feeling of the mercy. That means mercy is gone from you. Second, when you start eating meat, it dulls your consciousness. That means you really don't think about the consequences. You're not really bothered on what would happen, what would be the end result, and your consciousness becomes very dull. So meat eating actually destroys your mercy. Let's look at the other sections for intoxication. So when you do an intoxication empowers your your ability to practice austerity, and forego instant enjoyment in order to achieve long-term goals. So this is very important. Intoxication impairs our ability to practice austerity. So if you have to perform austerity, you need to avoid intoxication, because if you start doing that, your ability to perform austerity is gone. You will not be able to adhere or achieve your long-term goals. Second, when you are delirious, your ability to acquire knowledge is lost. That means when you do intoxication, you are not in the position actually to understand and acquire any knowledge at your end. So intoxication actually destroys your austerity and your ability to acquire the true knowledge. Let's look at the other section. Illicit sex destroys cleanliness, which means if you have illicit sex, it consumes our quality of cleanliness. Your cleanliness is destroyed when you do an illicit sex. Also, people who contemplate and fantasize about sex, it creates a lot of distraction. So all this, what we are talking about, is again destroying the dharma, and we will not be able to achieve our ultimate goal. And the last one is gambling destroys the truthfulness. So look, when we look at the gambling sect, it says gambling destroys our truthfulness. Gambling encourages a cheating mentality where you obtain something for nothing. The moment you start gambling, you start cheating others. Okay. And then gambling also promotes an addicted behavior and in general destroys your dishonesty. So with gambling, you are no more truthful, you are cheating people, your behavior changes, and you become dishonest. So not following the regulative principle destroys your ability to go on the path of dharma, via which you will not be able to achieve your ultimate goal. You want to reach to a divine position to attain happiness, which is permanent, and even to go to a godly consciousness, you need to follow those path of dharma, and regulative principle needs to be followed. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So these are 4 things that were discussed in the 17th chapter. Another quick 2 slides. And sorry, one more thing was gambling also agitates your mind. Okay. So with all these 4 things coming in place, you are not reaching your goal anywhere near. Okay. So just 2 slides just to know on what exactly is our goal. So our goal is to, via bhakti, achieve a divine position. So this slide actually says that the soul and Krishna are 4 doors apart. These are the 4 doors that are there between the soul and Krishna. The first 3 doors are typically controlled by Mahamaya. What we saw in the previous slide is mostly done in the mode of ignorance. So people who are intoxicated, gambling, doing illicit sex, and doing intoxication are in the mode of ignorance. These 4 doors, you need to cross these 4 doors in order to reach Krishna or see Krishna. First 3 doors are controlled by Mahamaya, which is material in nature. And Mahamaya has 2 properties. Okay, they are called Avrana Atmika and Prakshik Atmika. This means, Avran means covering. This says that Mahamaya covers the knowledge. It is a covering potency that hides knowledge. And Prakship Atmika means it acts in ignorance. So Mahamaya will push you to act in ignorance. This means that it will act upon the conditioned soul to deprive them more and more of devotional service. Once you pass 3, so our aim is to rise above the 3 modes of material nature. So we need to come above the mode of ignorance, go to the mode of passion, then rise above, go to the mode of goodness, and only the fourth door, which is the Yogmaya door, will open up. And this Yogmaya door is spiritual nature, and it opens only for devotees. Increasingly helps him become purified and devote his energy to the service of the Lord. So this door only opens for the devotees. So four doors that we need to cross. One is, three of them are controlled by Mahamaya, one is by spiritual. The whole idea is to should rise above the three modes of material nature so that we can attain that divine position and we'll be able to see Krishna. Just one slide, I'm not discussing all of this, but just to know the final destination of people in the mode of ignorance, this is the final destination. If a conditioned soul is in the mode of ignorance, I'm not discussing all of this, the last final destination as per Bhagavad Gita says, attains animal kingdom upon death. So if you are in the mode of ignorance, this is your final destination. And Bhagavad Gita talks about one shloka. Can anyone remember which says the biggest danger? Can someone quote that shloka?
Is this
in Bhagavad Gita? Neha Vikramana Shosti. Yes. So that's the shloka. Neha Vikramana Shosti Pratyavayor na vidyate swalpam
Swalpam apyasya dharmasya.
Apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So mahato bhayat, Prabhupada says the biggest danger is if you come down from a human species to an animal species, then it is very dangerous because you don't know that when and how you will be uplifted from that animal species to a human species back. So that's the biggest danger. So that's the final destination of the people in mode of ignorance. Very quick. What needs to be done then? Right? So there are four things that comes up. First, you need to purify your mind. Second, transform your heart. Third, make your intelligence strong. And fourth, increase your awareness. And that is done in case if you have to purify your mind, you need to chant the holy names of the Lord. Third, if you need to transform your heart, you need to associate with the devotees. Fourth, if you need to make your intelligence strong, you need to study Shastras. And fourth, hear about the glories of the Lord. So this is four things that you need to do if you have to come out of that mentality and say, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to chant, we need to associate, study Shastras, and hear about the glories of the Lord. Last part, where do we start? Right? There should be some starting point. So two shlokas from Canto 3 and Canto 1. Very nice. I'll just read the purport for this, two of them. The 3:25:25 says, this is in the association of the pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and the activities of the Supreme Lord is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation and thereafter is freed, and his attraction becomes freed. The real devotion and devotional service begins. That's the first part. So it is all about association of the devotees and gaining the knowledge. Second is in 177, it says, simply by oral reception of Vedic literature, the feeling of loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of the lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So that's the starting point. So previous slide says there are four things that you need to do, and this is the starting point. We need to start associating, we need to start chanting, we need to start discussing things about the Lord, we need to start reading about the personality of Godhead. And once this is done, the bhakti sprout is what it says will awaken. Okay. So these were few slides that I really wanted to cover from the previous section on the 17th chapter. Now we'll quickly jump to the 18th chapter to start our readings from 18:1. Anyone has any questions on the previous slides that we covered?
Prabhu, what was the result of when the person is in mode of goodness? Say,
Okay.
for the ignorance, he receives the animal kingdom. Okay, kingdom.
Yeah.
For passion, he results in foolishness.
Yeah. So goodness attains higher planet of great sages upon death.
Okay.
Okay. For person in passion takes birth among fruitive workers upon death, and in ignorance he receives the animal kingdom. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go to the shloka number 1. Okay. So first chapter, let's start the first shloka. Okay. Suta vacha yo vedronyastra viplushto namaru manamaturu dermrtaha anugrahat bhagavataha krishnasyaadbhut karmanaha. Translation. Sri Suta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Parikshit, though struck by the weapons of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned. Purport. Can someone read the purport?
The sages of Naimisharan became struck with wonder after hearing about the wonderful administration of Maharaj Parikshit, especially in reference to his punishing the personality of the Kali and making him completely unable to do any harm within the kingdom. Suta Goswami was equally anxious to describe Maharaj Parikshit's wonderful birth and death, and this verse is stated by Suta Goswami to increase the interest of the sages of Naimisharan.
Okay, so here it says, due to the mercy of personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Parikshit Maharaj, though struck by the weapons of son of Drona in the mother's womb, could not be burned. Let's go to our first shloka. So, one of the good qualities of Lord Krishna that is mentioned here is called Sharanagat Palaka. So that's the quality of the Lord. And this quality says that Lord is the protector of the surrendered soul. So Krishna is the protector of the surrendered soul, and it is a habit of Krishna. It's not something that he does, but it's his habit. Krishna gives protection not even to the surrendered souls, but even to his enemies, right? And Krishna is sometimes also compared to the moon, which does not hesitate to distribute his soothing rays even on the houses of Chandalas and other untouchables. So that's the property of the Lord that is mentioned, which is Sharanagat Palaka. A lot of references from the Shastras that we know, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Sudama, they were all protected by the Lord. In Ramayana also, if you see, Vibhishana was also protected. So the Lord says, if someone comes and says, Tvam Asmi, I'm yours, he gives the protection. He gives the desired protection that is there. So this shloka is all talking about Maharaj Parikshit getting saved in the womb when the Brahmastra was fired. So Suta Goswami was anxious to describe Maharaj Parikshit's wonderful birth and death, and this was stated by Suta Goswami just to increase the interest of Naimisharanya. Okay, so we will now go to the second verse. Okay, second verse. It says, Brahma Kopo Titadyastu Takshat Prana Viplavat Na Sammumoho Rubhyat Bhagwati Arpita Shayaha. Translation. Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always cautiously surrendered to the personality of Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to a snake bird which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahmana boy. Can someone read the purport, please?
Sure, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Purport. A self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called Narayana Parayana. Such a person is never afraid of any place or person, not even of death. For him, nothing is as important as the Supreme Lord, and thus he gives equal importance to heaven and hell. He knows well that both heaven and hell are creations of the Lord, and similarly, life and death are different conditions of existence created by the Lord. But in all conditions and in all circumstances, remembrance of Narayana is essential. The Narayana Parayana practices this constantly. Maharaja Parikshit was such a pure devotee. He was wrongfully cursed by an inexperienced son of a Brahmana who was under the influence of Kali. And Maharaja Parikshit took this to be sent by Narayana. He knew that Narayana, Lord Krishna, had saved him when he was burned in the womb of his mother. And if he were to be killed by a snake bite, it would also take a place by the will of the Lord. The devotee never goes against the will of the Lord. Anything sent by God is blessing for the devotee. Therefore, Maharaja Parikshit was neither afraid of nor bewildered by such things. This is the sign of pure devotee of the Lord. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you. So a beautiful quality that Prabhupada describes here is called Narayan Parayan. Let's see some of the details of this, right? So let's go to who is Narayan Parayan. So here, a self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is Narayan Parayan. Such a person is never afraid of any place or person, not even death. Maharaj Parikshit was neither afraid nor bewildered by such things. So that's a quality that Prabhupada's right. So there are two events that are mentioned here. First is the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, where Narayan, the Lord Krishna, had saved him. And second was the death. Now, Parikshit Maharaj exactly knew that since the Lord has saved him in the womb, he also knew that there is nothing wrong, and even he would die later on by the will of the Lord. So both the birth and death for Maharaj Parikshit was not a surprise. He knew the Lord protected him, and he knew that if I'm going to die, it would be again by the will of the Lord. So in both the cases, Parikshit Maharaj was saying that either it is birth or death, it is a blessing of the Lord. So that's the quality. He was not at all disturbed by this. Some of the very good qualities of the Narayan Parayan that Prabhupada has mentioned at quite a few places. I'll just roughly go through them and we'll understand what exactly is the meaning of Narayan Parayan. So what is the ultimate goal? Prabhupada writes in few of them. The references are also there, but we'll just read some of them. It says Narayan Parayan, one who has taken Narayan as the ultimate goal of life. That means he knows that only Narayan is the ultimate goal of life. Second, a devotee is Narayan Parayan or Vasudev Parayan, which means that the path of Vasudev or the devotional service is the life and the soul. So the ultimate goal is to make the Lord Vasudev the life and soul. That's the goal. Second, it does not require any qualification to become Narayan Parayan. Prabhupada says, Narayan Parayan means my life is now dedicated for Narayan. Narayan, Krishna, Vishnu, they are the same. This is what Prabhupada mentions in one of the lectures. He says, so that is the qualification. If you simply take it as a vow that from this day, my life is dedicated to Narayan Krishna. So if you take this as an ultimate goal that from this day onward, I dedicate my life to Narayan, That is called Narayan Parayan. Okay, and that is an ultimate goal that these people have. What are the qualities? Now, here Prabhupada mentions, if you become simply Narayan Parayan, devotee of Narayan or Krishna, Prabhupada says all good qualities will come to you automatically. That means all the good qualities will start manifesting in you. Second, anyone who is a Narayan Parayan, he does not fear whether he is going to hell or heaven. So Prabhupada also says in this purport and in this also lecture in Bhagavad Gita 16th and Prabhupada says that's the quality that if you become Narayan Parayan, he becomes fearless. He really is not bothered that I'm going to hell or heaven. Third point, the Narayan Parayan, the devotee of Lord Narayan, is only blissful person. One who becomes Narayan Parayan is already liberated from the material bondage. So Prabhupada says this he spoke in Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada says that if you become Narayan Parayan, you are already liberated from the material bondage. And then the last point here, this says that Krishna, and I think this was spoken by Sukdev Goswami, if I remember in the purport. So here it says, Krishna is the origin of both Narayan and Vasudev. Even though Narayan and Vasudev are non-different from Krishna, simply by surrendering to Krishna, one fully surrenders to all his expansions, such as Narayan, Vasudev, and Govinda. Very important part. So Krishna is the origin of Narayan and Vasudev. So if you become Narayan Parayan, there is no harm. It is written in this purport that simply by surrendering to Krishna, you are also surrendering automatically to all his expansions, such as Narayan, Vasudev, and Govinda. Okay. Last one, which says, this person who is Narayan Parayan is very rare. And Prabhupada says, it has been described that a Narayan Parayan, a pure devotee, is rare, is very rare among millions and millions of persons. So these are some of the key points that are related to the Narayan Parayan, which is actually goal and qualities of that person. Okay. Okay, so we saw here it is all covered. Maharaj Parikshit was not at all influenced by anyone. He is Narayan Parayan, and we saw all the good qualities and the goal of those people who are Narayan Parayan. Let's look at the verse number 3. Okay, so 3 says, Utsrijya sarvata sangam Vijnanajita samstitihi. Why? Okay. Why ya sakirjaho shishyo sangayam swakalevaram. Translation. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyasa, Sukdev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the banks of Ganges. Purport. Can someone read the purport? Okay, I'll read it.
The
Are you
word
reading?
Ajita
Okay, sorry.
is
Okay, go ahead,
significant here.
Yeah.
The personality of the Godhead, Shri Krishna, is known as Ajit or unconquerable, and he is so in every respect. No one can know his actual position. He is unconquerable by knowledge also. We have heard about his dharma or place, eternal Golok Vrindavan. But there are many scholars who interpret this abode in different ways. But by the grace of a spiritual master like Sukdev Goswami, unto whom the king gave himself up as a most humble disciple, one is able to understand the actual position of the Lord, his eternal abode, and his transcendental paraphernalia in that dharma or abode. Knowing the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental method by which one can approach this transcendental dharma, the king was confident about his ultimate destination. And by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body, without any difficulty of attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Param Drashtra
Drishva Nivartate.
Nivartate. One can give up all connection with material attachment when one is able to see the Param, or the superior quality of things. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand the quality of the Lord's energy that is superior to the material quality of energy, and by the grace of a bona fide spiritual master like Sukdev Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything of the superior energy of the Lord by which the Lord manifests his eternal name, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Unless one thoroughly understands this superior or eternal energy of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy. However, one may theoretically speculate on the true nature of the absolute truth. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit was able to receive the mercy of such a personality of Sukdev Goswami, and thus he was able to know the actual position of the unconquerable Lord. It is very difficult to find the Lord from, from the Vedic literatures, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of a liberated devotee like Sukdev Goswami. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So here there is a very important point that it all talks about a disciple and it talks about a guru, and then it also talks about if you have to understand the Lord, who is the one who will give us the correct direction and the correct understanding on who the Lord is, right? The Lord has his spiritual energy, he has his abode, he has his activities, he has his leelas, he has his dham. Now, to understand what should be the state of a disciple and who can make you understand that correct position, transcendental position of the Lord. So let's see some of the details in here. Okay, so 1.18.3, how to conquer the unconquerable. So we have Maharaj Parikshit on one side, who is a very humble disciple. Now, Maharaj Parikshit, if you remember, renounced all the material opulences. He was a king, right? So he had a big kingdom with him. And he renounced that full kingdom and even his body. He did not care about, during those 7 days, he did not eat or drink. So he did renounce his opulences, whatever he had. He renounced his full kingdom and even gave his body. And very importantly also, and he gave up all the connection, the material attachments with that. So he gave up all the connection with the material attachment. So this is Maharaj Parikshit, a disciple. You need a guru like Sukdev Goswami, who is, again, by his mercy, by his grace, or by his ahetuki kripa, as a spiritual master, it was possible that now, if you read at the translation, it says it was Sukdev Goswami who is the only person who can actually tell how to conquer the Lord or how to know the Lord. So it is only a guru like Sukdev Goswami who can give us the correct direction, give us the correct method, and give us the correct knowledge. And why do we need this? Because we need to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is mentioned in this particular shloka as Ajita or unconquerable. So, if you need to understand the Lord with various energies, and if you want to understand his pastimes, his activities, and his dham, we need a guru like Sukdev Goswami, and we need a guru like Parikshit Maharaj. So only when someone like Parikshit Maharaj and Sukdev Goswami are there with what is mentioned, with humbleness, with submissiveness, someone who has renounced everything, and a guru like Sukdev Goswami who can give us the correct direction by his mercy and by his grace, we will be able to understand the various aspects of the Lord, including his energies, his pastimes, his activities, and his dham. Okay. Now, if you look at the perspective of non-devotees, it is also seen that there are non-devotees who try to speculate via their mental power to understand the Lord. So they will do all the required mental speculations that are required. They will involve their bodily strength, verbal expertise, and mental power, okay, somehow to understand the Lord. But then what happens is where they would reach is they would only be able to get an imperfect and impersonal understanding of the Lord. Okay. And in this situation, is the Lord conquered? No, the Lord is unconquerable to the non-devotee. So if you apply your mental speculations, even though you apply your bodily strength, mental power, verbal expertise, you will not be able to conquer the Lord. On the other hand, if you look at the situation of the devotees, they do associate with the gurus that are available. They involve their body, words, and mind. So they will involve their body in doing all their devotional practices in the services that are there. They will involve their words in reading the Shastras by chanting the name. They will involve their mind also to understand the Supreme Lord. So devotees with the association, and when they involve their body, mind, and words, they will be able to understand the absolute truth. And this is where the Lord is able to be conquered by the devotees. So non-devotees, it is not possible to conquer the Lord. However, if you look at the devotees, yes, they are able to conquer the Lord. And this is what is mentioned in 10:14:3. I will read this particular purport. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind offer all respects to the description of your personality and activities, dedicating their life to these narrations which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. So it is very important for us to understand that we cannot associate with the non-devotees, because ultimately we will not be able to conquer the Lord. We should always associate with the devotees. With the association involving our body, words, and mind, we will be able to conquer the Lord. And this is what is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, 14th chapter, shloka number 3. Now, who can give us the right knowledge, right? That's another question, because if someone has to tell us that, yes, this is the personality, there should be someone who has seen the truth and who can give you the knowledge. And that can only happen when we approach a spiritual master, because also we need to be sure that we are inquiring submissively and we are rendering service unto him, right? So very beautiful shloka in Bhagavad Gita 4:34, which says, Tad vidhi patena pariprashnena seveya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. It says, just try to learn by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge onto you because they have seen the truth. So only one who has seen the truth can give you the correct knowledge. No other person can give you the knowledge if he has not seen this truth. So this is a very important shloka, which is Bhagavad Gita 4:34. So next, how can we know the Krishna and Tattva? Yes, only through devotional service, right? Bhagavad Gita talks about 18:55, which says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvatah tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as a supreme personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into my kingdom. So, first is who can give you the correct knowledge, that is a guru, and how we can know the Krishna and the Tattva is only through the devotional service. Okay, so these are the key aspects of 18.3. So here, this particular purport is all talking about a disciple, a guru, and the Lord, that we need to understand the Lord, but it is only because of a disciple like Parikshit Maharaj and a guru like Sukdev Goswami, we would be able to conquer and understand the Lord in true sense. Okay, let's go to shloka number 4. Shloka 4 says, Nottama shloka vartanam jushtam tat kathamritam syad sambhramo antakalepi smaratam tat padhambujam. Translation. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives in the transcendental topic of personality of Godhead, of whom Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconception even at the last moment of their lives. Purport, I'll read it. The highest perfection of life is attained by remembering the transcendental nature of the Lord at the last moment of one's life. This perfection of life is made possible by one who has learned the actual transcendental nature of the Lord from Vedic hymns sung by liberated soul like Sukdev Goswami or someone in the line of disciplic succession. There is no gain in hearing the Vedic hymns from the mental speculator. When the same is heard from an actual self-realized soul and is properly understood by the service and submission, everything becomes transparently clear. Thus, submissive disciple is able to live transcendently and continue to the end of life. By scientific adaptation, one is able to remember the Lord even at the end of life. When the power of remembrance is slackened due to the derangement of the bodily membranes, for a common man it is difficult to remember things as they are at the time of death. But by the grace of the Lord and his spirit and his bona fide devotee, the spiritual master, one can get this opportunity without difficulty. And it was done in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. Sorry, I need to put my charger on. Okay, so this is talking about remembering the lotus feet of the Lord till the last moment. Okay, let's look at some of the details. So remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. Now, first thing that we need to understand is Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental. Any shloka from Bhagavad Gita that remembers what the birth and activities of Krishna is transcendental? Okay, so the shloka is Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tyaktvatah tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mameti so archana. So birth and activities of Krishna is transcendental. So So how can we know Krishna and his tattva? Again, we come to the same point of three things. We need to have a disciple who is submissive, performing his devotional service. And then we also need a self-realized soul who knows Krishna consciousness. That's very important. And is in disciplic succession. And he knows the real truth. Only when you have a soul, self-realized soul with these three things is where we will be able to know Krishna, his tattva, will be able to understand his transcendental activities, his roop, his qualities, and his pastime. So only a self-realized soul is someone who can help us in remembering the Lord, the lotus feet of the Lord, and his actual position at the time of death. Okay. Now, is it easy for a person to remember the Lord at the time of death? Let's see a few of the things that are mentioned in the Shastras. One, death is extremely painful, and dying person experiences a pain that is equivalent to 40,000 scorpions biting simultaneously. This is as per Garud Puran. So it's not a very good situation at the time of death, because you will have this coming in. A very good shloka in again coming from Canto 5, which is teaching from Rishabdev. I'll just read the purport. Dear Lord, we may not be able to remember your name, form, and qualities due to. Now, these are all the problems that we will face at the time of death. Stumbling, hunger, falling down, yawning, or being in a miserable diseased condition at the time of death when there is high fever. So it's not easy for us to remember the Lord at the time of death, because these are things that would happen to us. Our situation, our bodily situation, our bodily consciousness will not be in the correct position. Now, we therefore pray unto you, O Lord, for you are very affectionate to your devotees. Please help us remember you and utter your holy names, attributes, and activities which can dispel all the reactions of such sinful activities. So these are the prayers, but it just tells you that the situation that we would be in at the time of death is described here. And of course, this is not a very good situation. So how to remember Krishna at the time of death, right? Let's look at the process. So the process is, first, it takes time. It's not that it comes instantly. You need to follow this. You need to practice this a lot. Let's look at these three stages on how to remember Krishna at the time of death. One, there is a process. Always think of Krishna. At the same time, carry your prescribed duties. So while performing your duties, think about him. It is said, dedicate your activities onto me, which is Krishna, and fix your mind and intelligence onto me. So that's the process. The first process is always think of him. Second, dedicate your activities, fixing your mind and intelligence on them while you are performing your prescribed duties. That's a process. Second, it is very important to keep practicing this process. It's not that you do once and you forget. No. Sorry. You need to keep practicing this. So keep practicing, and whatever state of one being remembers, he will attain that state. So it's not that we have to remember anything else. No, that's not the aim. The aim is to remember Krishna always. Keep practicing this. And when you keep practicing this, you will be able to remember me. And this is where Krishna says, whoever quits the body remembering me attains his nature. So these are the three steps that you need to perform. And this is coming from three beautiful shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. The first is 8.7 that talks about the process. So it says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think about me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. With your activities dedicated onto me and your mind and intelligence fixed, you will attain me. So this fixing the mind, thinking always about me is a process. Second, keep practicing this. never come out of this practice. You have to do this for a long time, because only when you practice, which is whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body. So that state, what we want through the practice is always remembrance of Krishna. And once you do this, what will happen is, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. So only when you keep practicing, you will be able to remember the Lord at the last moment. So this is what is the process that you need to follow. Keep practicing. When you keep practicing, at the end, for sure, you will come to me. There was a very interesting question that one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada asked him. He asked him, what, Prabhupada, if we are unable to remember Krishna at the time of death? Then Prabhupada just asked this disciple, what did I tell you to do? What is your duty? He said, okay, you have told us follow 4 regulative principles and chant the holy names of the Lord. He kept quiet. And then the disciple again asked Prabhupada the same question. Prabhupada again told him the same thing. What did I tell you to do? Okay, he said, okay, follow 4 regulative principles and chant the holy name of the Lord. Third time he asked Prabhupada again the same question, saying that, okay, Prabhupada, what happens if you are unable to remember Krishna? He said, Prabhupada said, do what I told you. Follow regulative principles, chant seriously. And even if you are unable to remember Krishna, I will make him remember you. So that's the power of a guru. That's the power that that the system has, and that's the power of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada clearly said, even if you are unable to do that, I will make sure that Krishna remembers you. But just follow your 4 regulative principles and chant seriously. Okay, so this is where we need to follow the process. Okay, by practice, and you'll be able to remember Krishna at the time of death.
Prabhu,
Yes.
in the purport of this, there is a sentence, by scientific adaptation, one is able to remember the Lord even at the end of the life, when the power of remembrance is slackened due to the dearrangement of the bodily remembrances. What exactly, what are those signs?
Yeah. In this, right? So you are talking about
by scientific adaptation.
Let me see where it is.
Go a little down.
By scientific adaptation, one is able to remember Lord even at the time of death, when the power of the membrane is slackened due to the arrangement of the bodily membranes. Okay. So I think this is referring to your scientific way, where you can have your memory in place. So, Prabhu, is this correct? Is this what the statement is talking about?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Actually, Prabhu had to go, so he's not there just now.
Okay, fine. So, vice and now one is able to remember the time of the slackened due to the. So I think here when it says about scientific adaptation, it is talking about your memory through the scientific way, even if that is increased. This is what is my understanding, but we'll confirm with Subal Prabhu when he comes back also. Okay.
And secondly, Prabhu, I don't know whether in Bhagavad Gita or we have discussed one story of a king who said, presently I am able to remember you, I am in a good health. But it is better if you give, if I get a death now, so that, because I don't know what will happen when I will be old and I will maybe forget you everything. I exactly don't remember. There was a king who said, presently I am in a very good health and I remember you constantly, and I want you make me die now itself.
I'll have to recall.
Anyhow, I will search that. Maybe.
Hare Krishna. That was King Kulashekar. His prayers were such that, because I am fit today, let my swan of life merge basically into the into your lotus feet, because if I become old, I don't know what would be my physical condition and whether I will be able to remember you and pray to you and do devotional service to you. That scientific adaptation, if I understand correctly, I'm guessing, I'm not sure whether I'm right or not. It's more about trying to ensure that the body becomes, if there is any kind of impairment of organs, or basically body physically is unable to perform to its required strength, which causes impact to us in our devotional service, then by scientific adaptation, one should try to whatever necessary is required to do to maintain the organs or rectify them in order to be able to remember the Lord at the time of death.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, 1 minute, go into, this is shloka number 4, right? Okay, so shloka 4. I have Hindi, yeah, 1 minute. So I'm just trying to read. Yeah, I think that's the same. So here in Hindi also it says वैज्ञानिक अनुकूलन द्वारा मनुष्य भगवान को जीवन के अंत समय तक स्मरण रख सकता है. So I think it is all talking about through the medical ways that you are able to keep your memory and your body and other organs fit. You will yeah. जब शरीर के जर्जर होने से स्मरण शक्ति ढीली पड़ जाती है. I think that's the same as what Subal Prabhu mentioned.
So it could mean basically by medicines or any other surgery.
Means.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, so that's 4. Let's look at shloka number 5. Okay, it says Tavat Kalirna Prabhavet प्रविष्टो अपिह सर्वतः यावद ईशो महान उर्व्याम अभिमन्यव्य एकरात. Translation: as long as great, powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of the world, there is no chance that the personality of Kali would flourish. Purport, I'll read it. As we have already explained, the personality of Kali had entered this jurisdiction of earth long time ago, and he was looking for an opportunity to spread his influence all over the world. But he could not do so satisfactorily due to the presence of Maharaj Parikshit. That is the way of good government. This disturbing elements like the personality of Kali will always try to extend their nefarious activities, but it is the duty of the able state to check them by all means. Although Maharaj Parikshit allotted places for personality of Godhead, for personality of Kali, at the same time he gave no chance for the citizens to be swayed by personality of Kali. So this is a very simple shloka, just 2 points that I wanted to cover. Kali cannot stay at places where religious principles are followed as regulated by injunction of scriptures, where there are sacrifices that are done for the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Parikshit made sure that the citizens were following the path of Dharma. Okay, so these are 2 important points that Kali will never enter if you follow your religious principle, you're following the path of Dharma, and you are doing all the sacrifices that are required for the Supreme Lord. And this is where it says it could not flourish. Okay, shloka number 6. Yasmin ahani arhi eva bhagwanutsasarjagam tadevehanuvritto asva adharma prabhava Kali. Translation: the very day and moment the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earth, the personality Kali, who promotes all kind of irreligious activities, came into this world.
I'll read it, Prabhu.
Yeah, okay,
The
go ahead.
personality of the Godhead and his holy name, qualities, etc., are all identical. The personality of Kali was not able to enter the jurisdiction of the earth due to the presence of the personality of the Godhead. And similarly, if there is an arrangement for the constant chanting of the holy names, qualities, etc., of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, there is no chance at all for the personality of the Kali to enter. That is the technique of driving away the personality of the Kali from the world. In modernized human society, there are great advancements of material science, and they have invented the radio to distribute sound in the air. So instead of vibrating some nuisance sound for sense enjoyment, if the state arranges to distribute transcendental sound by resounding the holy name, fame, and activities of the Lord as they are authorized in the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, then a favorable condition will be created. The principles of religion in the world will be re-established, and thus the executive heads who are so anxious to drive away corruption from the world will be successful. Nothing is bad if properly used for the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so it was quite obvious that the moment when Krishna left this earth, personality of Kali promotes all irreligious activities into this material world. Okay, so very obvious here it's mentioned that how to reestablish the principle of religion. So here it says by distributing the holy fame, name, and activities of the Lord, right? And it also says since Krishna's name and qualities are identical, there is no difference between his name and qualities. The only way to reestablish the principle of religion is distribute the holy names, because Krishna and his name is same, distribute his fame and the activities of the Lord, right? Chaitanya Charitamrita 17:133, Nam Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Ras Vigraha Purna Shuddha Nitya Mukta Abhitva Nama Namino. So it says the holy name of Krishna is transcendental and blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not material name under any condition. There is, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by material qualities, there is no question of being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. So here it was very clear that during the kingdom of Parikshit Maharaj, he exactly knew what activities that needs to be performed. And wherever Krishna is there, there was no chance that Kali would come in. So here it is just saying that instead of doing all the nuisance that is happening, there has to be a distribution of name, fame, of qualities of the Lord. And name, there's no difference between Krishna and his name himself. So that's the best way to reestablish the principle in the material world. Okay. 7th. Nanudveshti kalim samrat saranga eva sarbhog kulashanyashu siddhyanti netarani kritani yat. Translation: Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like a bee who only accepts essence of flowers. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must actually be performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. Purport. I'll read it. the age of Kali is called a fallen age. In this fallen age, because the living beings are in an awkward position, the Supreme Lord has always some special facilities given to them. So, by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In the other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of them. Maharaj Parikshit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality Kali, because he did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. He protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of Kali. And at the same time, he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of personality of God of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaj Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all the good for the age of Kali. In Vedas also it is said that by discourse of Lord Krishna's activity, one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that by recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of age of Kali, and Maharaj Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think of any ill of the age of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite cult. Okay. So, Maharaj Parikshit was very, very clever, and he exactly knew the effects of this Kali Yuga and the previous Yuga, and he exactly took an advantage of this. So let's see what he exactly did. Okay, Maharaj Parikshit was never envious, and he knew the effects of Kali Yuga. So he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. On the other hand, he also knew the effects of Kali Yuga. So it is clearly mentioned that in the other yugas, one is punished immediately simply by thinking of performing a sinful act. That was in the previous yugas. And in the Kali Yuga, if you see, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act unless the act is actually performed. So he took an advantage of that. Parikshit Maharaj exactly knew that if this is an advantage in the Kali Yuga, then let us take an advantage. And since this was not the previous yugas, only if you perform a sinful act is where you get the result of that act that you perform. So he made sure that none of the citizens in his kingdom could perform such a sinful act. And he took an advantage of that particular Kali Yuga characteristics as what is mentioned here. And also in Kali Yuga, a living being in this age is awarded with the result of pious acts simply by thinking of them. So primarily the first one is what Parikshit Maharaj took an advantage of. He made sure that his citizens will not perform any or such sinful acts, since the results will only come after you perform it. It was not this case with the other yugas where simply by thinking bad about it, you used to get the impact of that. So he really took an advantage and made sure that everyone is involved into the glorification of the Lord. So Parikshit Maharaj exactly knew the position of the Supreme, right? So a very beautiful shloka from Bhagavatam 1 to 28 and 29, we will read this, which says, Vasudeva Paradevo, Vasudeva Paramaka, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriya, Vasudeva Paramgyana, Vasudeva Parantapa, Vasudeva Parodharma, Vasudeva Paragati. So Maharaj Parikshit exactly knew that the ultimate, so this is a very good shloka which also talks about the same. The ultimate object of knowledge is Krishna. He is the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is meant for realizing him. All the fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is the supreme knowledge. All the austerities are performed to know him. Religion, which is dharma, is rendering devotional service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life. Now, all that was happening in the kingdom of Parikshit Maharaj, he knew exactly what is the position of the Lord, and he was exactly doing the same, taking an advantage of that one property of Kali Yuga, which will not give you the sun unless you do it. So he made sure that he and his people are involved exactly in all the activities that are shown here. Okay. Now, so he took an advantage in the age of Kali and he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. So here also one more very important shloka. We all know this, that the only advantage that you have in this age of Kali, and Prabhupada mentions, is chanting the name of the Lord. It says, Kaler doshe nidhe rajan, astihi eko mahan guna, Kirtanad evasya Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Prajet. My dear king, although Kali Yuga is the ocean of fault, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can be freed from the material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So he took an advantage of that. He took an advantage of the property of the Kali Yuga that we saw. And these are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali. Maharaj Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think ill about the age of Kali. And this is a true Vaishnavite cult. So he made sure that everyone sticks doing any unlawful act, and everyone chants the name of the Lord. Everyone performs all the required activities for the Lord, and that's the true Vaishnavite cult, or a Vaishnav etiquette that Maharaj Parikshit followed. Okay, that was 118.7. Okay, 8th. So 8 says, Kim nu baleshu shurena kalinadhi rabhiruna apramatta pramatteshu yo vrikonrushu vartate. Translation: Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish and the careless persons. Purport.
I will read.
Yeah.
Those who are not devotees of the Lord are careless and unintelligent. Unless one is thoroughly intelligent, one cannot be a devotee of the Lord. Those who are not devotees of the Lord fall prey to the actions of Kali. It will not be possible to bring about a saner condition in society unless we are prepared to accept the modes of action adopted by Maharaj Parikshit. Propagation of the devotional service to the Lord into the common man.
So Parikshit Maharaj was not at all concerned with people who had self-controlled. So there was nothing to fear about it. But yes, he always was looking at people who were foolish and careless person and made sure that they propagated they got involved into the devotional service of the Lord. So he was primarily concerned with the foolish and the careless persons. Okay. Okay. So that was the end. So this was very smart thinking of him, that people who are already intelligent, he was not worried, but people who were unintelligent is where he actually focused and made sure that they follow all the regulative principles as per the spiritual injunctions. Last one is text 9. So, उपवर्णितमेतद्वः पुण्यपरीक्षितं मया वासुदेवा कथोपेतम् आख्यानं यद् अपृच्छत्. Translation: O sages, as you did ask me, now I've described most everything regarding the narrations and about Lord Krishna and the connections with the history of the pious Parikshit Maharaj. Purport: Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of the activities of the Lord, and activities of the Lord are performed in relation with the devotees of the Lord. Therefore, the history of devotees is not different from the history of Lord Krishna's activities. A devotee of the Lord regards both activities of the Lord and those of pure devotees on an equal level, for they are all transcendental. So the activities of the Lord and activities of the devotees are at the transcendental level. They are non-different. And this is where I say that I have described everything about the history of pious Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, I think I don't have anything for after this as my presentation. So we are done. I'm open for any feedbacks, any questions. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Fantastic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Many thanks. Absolutely wonderful. Especially the first section where you did a recap. I think those first 20 minutes of lecture should be made as a kind of the objective of human life, and that should be a kind of a master lesson. Very nicely put up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Anybody, any questions?
No, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
No, Prabhuji, thank you very much. It was a nice session.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Chalo.
Hare
Thanks.
Krishna. We can close then. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dando Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.